Welcome to Short Takes on Strategy.
Your quick route to understanding what makes businesses tick.
Exactly. Think about Tesla for a second.
Yeah,
Just, a decade ago, bankruptcy seemed like a real possibility.
it really did.
Then, bam, 500,000 cars produced in 2020. I mean, an incredible turnaround.
Absolutely stunning.
But now, they're facing, serious heat from the big players like GM and all this innovation coming out of China.
Yeah, the landscape's shifting again.
Which brings us to that big question. Why do some companies just consistently do better than others?
And that's the core of strategic management.
Right. So today, this is our short take on strategy, and we're diving into Chapter 1 of Ketchen and Short's Mastering Strategic Management, the 4th edition.
It's a great starting point.
Our mission, pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
We want to unpack those foundational concepts. What is strategy? Especially using Mintzberg's 5 Ps.
And touch on how strategic thinking itself has kind of evolved.
Yeah, and the goal is to give you a solid grasp, some real aha moments, hopefully, without getting bogged down in academic jargon.
Your shortcut to getting strategy.
Okay, so let's jump into those 5 Ps Mintzberg talks about. We've got plan, ploy, pattern, position, and perspective. 5 different ways to look at strategy.
Lenses, really. Different ways to see the same thing.
Now, I want to kick off a bit of a debate here. For anyone trying to get their head around this stuff, maybe students, I honestly think plan is the most critical P to grasp first.
Oh, interesting. Why plan?
Because you need a roadmap, a deliberate, thought-out set of steps to get where you want to go. I mean, look at Apple in the mid-90s. They were struggling.
Definitely.
Emilio came in, put together a plan focused on the internet, multimedia, and look what followed. The iMac, iPod, iTunes, that initial plan, that clear direction, it was foundational. It's like that old saying, he who fails to plan, plans to fail. You've got to have that intentional starting point. It just makes sense.
Okay, I hear you. But, and this is a big but, isn't that a bit, static? Plans are great on paper.
What do you mean static?
I mean, the real strategy, the one that actually drives results, isn't just the intended plan. It's the pattern of actions the company takes over time, what they consistently do.
So the plan doesn't matter.
It matters as intent, but the pattern shows the reality. Think about Kmart. Oh, they had plans galore. Discounting, diversification, IT, taking on Walmart directly, plan after plan.
Yeah.
And the pattern. No consistency, constant shifts, lack of focus, and ultimately, bankruptcy court. The pattern showed the real strategy was flawed execution and confusion.
Okay, fair point on Kmart, but contrast that with Apple.
Exactly. Apple's had flops, sure. The Newton, the Pippin, nobody's perfect. But the pattern, consistent innovation, premium design, building that ecosystem, that's their strategy, revealed through years of consistent action, not just one initial plan.
But wait a second. You're looking backwards? The world changes so fast now. A pattern that worked yesterday could be totally wrong today. It reminds me of Mike Tyson.
Uh-oh, where's this going?
Everyone has a plan until I punch them in the face.
Right.
Businesses get punched in the face all the time. Think about the pandemic.
Okay.
Restaurants had these detailed business plans, right? Then boom, overnight those plans were useless. They had to adapt, pivot to delivery, takeout, just to survive. Adaptability, not sticking to some old pattern, was everything.
But hang on, that adaptability wasn't random chaos. They were adapting within a strategic direction, serving customers, generating revenue. They adapted the how, but the underlying pattern of being a food service business continued.
It felt pretty chaotic to them, I bet.
Maybe. But look, research actually shows that detailed planning isn't always the magic bullet. Its benefits can vary, depending on how much uncertainty there is in the environment, even down to a country's culture around uncertainty.
So planning isn't always key then?
Not necessarily rigid, detailed planning in every situation, but, and this is my point about Kmart, a complete lack of a consistent pattern, that constant zigzagging. That's almost always a recipe for disaster. You can't build anything lasting if you keep changing your fundamental direction.
So are you saying Kmart's consistent pattern of failure means their strategy was sound? Because it was consistent. That makes zero sense. The outcome has to matter.
Of course the outcome matters, but understanding the outcome often means looking at the pattern. Was it a flawed plan consistently followed? Or just random actions? You learn differently from each. A lack of pattern is just noise.
Oh, okay. I still think plan gives you the essential starting point, the intent. But fine, let's move on. The chapter also brings up historical strategy, ancient stuff.
Right, the roots of strategic thinking.
And honestly, are we really saying Moses or, the Trojan War has actual lessons for running a global tech company today? It feels like a massive stretch.
Oh, stretch. I couldn't disagree more.
Really? The scale, the technology, the global interconnectedness, it's a different planet.
The context is different, yes, but the fundamental principles, remarkably timeless. Take Moses delegating authority in Exodus.
Moses. We're talking biblical strategy now.
Why not? It's an early documented example of organizational structure. Deciding who does what, setting up lines of responsibility. CEOs wrestle with that exact problem today, whether they have 10 employees or 100,000. It's about managing resources and people effectively.
Okay, managing a group of maybe, what, 1 million nomads crossing a desert 3,500 years ago is not the same as managing Apple's global supply chain, R&D, and marketing in the age of AI. Come on, that's like saying knowing how to shoe a horse helps you design a Formula One engine.
You're focusing on the specifics, not the principle. The core challenge, organizing large groups for a common goal, is the same. Or think about Sun Tzu.
The art of war. Okay, more relevant maybe.
His idea of winning without fighting, that's gold. Think about Apple creating the smartphone market as we know it. They didn't just fight Nokia and BlackBerry on their terms. They made them almost irrelevant by changing the game. That's pure Sun Tzu.
Fine, creating new markets, yes.
Or the Trojan horse. Okay, it's a story, but the principle. Using deception, a ploy, to gain a strategic advantage. Businesses do that constantly.
We're not building giant wooden horses.
No, of course not, literally. But think about stealth marketing, or launching a subsidiary under a different name to test a market, like Amazon did with Big River Services International for its logistics play. It's about misdirection, gaining an edge unexpectedly. The concept is alive and well.
So your advice to CEOs is build more Trojan horses.
Yeah.
I can see the shareholders loving that strategy update. Q3 results are down, but wait till you see this massive horse.
Okay, now you're just being deliberately obtuse. It's not about the horse, it's the principle of strategic deception. Look at military history more broadly if you want more concrete examples.
Fine, let's hear it.
The American Revolution. A weaker force using guerrilla tactics, avoiding direct confrontation with a stronger conventional army. That's asymmetric warfare. Startups do that all the time against big incumbents.
Okay, that's a bit closer.
The American Civil War brutally highlighted the importance of resources, logistics, industry. Does your strategy account for your actual resource base? Can your supply chain support your ambition? That's a lesson straight from history that sinks companies today.
Resources matter, got it. Obvious, maybe.
Is it? Think about invading Russia. Napoleon, Hitler, both failed catastrophically, partly because they underestimated the environment, the winter. A timeless strategic lesson. Understand your operating environment. Businesses ignore external factors at their peril all the time.
Okay.
In France in 1940, they assumed German tanks couldn't get through the Ardennes forest, a fatal assumption about their competitors' capabilities. How many modern executives make exactly that kind of misjudgment about a competitor's potential or a disruptive technology? Ignoring these historical parallels, these patterns of success and failure, is strategic malpractice. It's like driving blindfolded.
Look, I get the broad idea. Competition, resources, knowing your enemy, fine. But the nuances of today, digital transformation, global finance, rapid tech cycles, make these ancient, mostly military examples feel simplistic, oversimplified. The context has to matter more now.
The context shapes the tactics, absolutely. But the deep principles of gaining advantage, allocating resources effectively, understanding your environment and your rivals, those are fundamental. They don't just disappear because we have smartphones.
Okay. Agree to disagree strongly on the direct applicability there. I think we've thoroughly aired our differing views.
Yes, I believe we have.
So let's try and wrap up this short take on strategy. We've dug into Chapter 1 from Ketchen is short. We started with why strategy even matters, looking at companies like Tesla, their highs and lows in the competition.
Then we unpacked Mintzberg's 5 Ps: plan, ploy, pattern, position, and perspective. Seeing them as different lenses to understand what a company is actually doing or trying to do.
Right. And, well, as you heard, we had a pretty energetic discussion about whether plan or pattern is sort of the most important P to focus on initially.
The spirited debate, yes.
And then we looked at the history, the deep roots of strategy in ancient times in military campaigns, where we also found some room for disagreement on how directly relevant those lessons are today.
But the key takeaway, I think, is that the 5 Ps together offer a rich framework. Strategy isn't usually just one of those things. It's often a blend.
In understanding those historical principles, even if you debate the specifics, can offer valuable perspective on competition and advantage.
Exactly.
And for you listening in, getting a handle on these basic ideas, strategy, the 5 Ps, thinking about context, it's really crucial, whether you're prepping for a meeting, trying to figure out an industry, or just, curious about why companies succeed or fail.
These are the essential building blocks.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Given everything we've discussed, the changing world, the timeless principles, the different ways to view strategy, think about this. Which strategic mistakes from the past? Those failures to adapt, bad assumptions about rivals, ignoring the environment. Which of those do you think companies are most likely to repeat today, despite all our modern tools and knowledge?
And maybe why? What makes certain kinds of strategic errors so persistent across time? Something to think about.